All right, let's jump right into this explainer. What if everything we thought we knew about skincare was kind of backwards? Think about it. Right now, cosmetic science is this endless, exhausting chase for the next big chemical active. We're slathering on acids, trying to trigger these super complex biochemical reactions just to keep our skin and hair looking good. But today, we're looking at a wildly different question. What if cosmetic resilience was driven entirely by pure geometry? Not chemistry, geometry. We're going to unpack a newly published conceptual patent by Dr. Melvin Sewell. And let me tell you, it completely flips traditional beauty science right on its head.
So here's our roadmap for the explainer. We're going to start by rethinking cosmetic science altogether. Then we'll introduce the SH-1 molecule, dive into the power of geometry, take a close look at the tetracyclic scaffold, and wrap up with how this goes from a wild concept to actual reality.
First up, rethinking cosmetic science. It's chemistry versus geometry. To really get this framework, we have to understand the huge conceptual shift happening here. Traditional cosmetic actives, they're all about biochemical, hormonal, or enzymatic pathways. Basically, they're designed to force your body into a chemical reaction. And, forcing reactions can be rough on the body. It leads to irritation, inflammation, all those side effects we hate. But the SH-1 model, it steps completely away from that. Instead of chemistry, it relies entirely on physical morphology and geometric space. It is a 100% non-pharmacological approach. Just imagine a skincare routine that literally cannot cause chemical inflammation because it doesn't chemically interact with your cells at all. It just sits there, perfectly shaped, doing its job purely by taking up space. Moving on to our next section, introducing the SH-1 molecule, which acts as a mythic scientific bridge. Now, what's incredibly fascinating here is how the author actually embraces where this idea came from. The document describes the SH-1 molecule as a theoretical construct, bridging a mythic scientific narrative with real cosmetic science. It was authored by Dr. Melvin Sewell at the, and get this, the Cosmic University of Echo Rift Studies IX. Talk about a unique name, right? But the background is just as wild. Dr. Sewell is totally transparent that this whole thing started as a conceptual, almost sci-fi thought experiment, a literal mythic narrative, and now it's been formalized for the serious scholarly record. It's just so cool to watch an idea evolve from pure imagination into this grounded, highly structured scientific framework.
All right, Section 3, the power of geometry, where we'll get steric presence explained.
So if there's no chemical reaction going on, what's actually doing the heavy lifting? Well, it all comes down to something called steric presence. The document defines this as the ability of a molecule to occupy microenvironmental space without biochemical binding, thereby supporting resilience. Okay, a bit wordy, I know, but think of it like this. Imagine a massive bouncer standing in the doorway of a nightclub. In this scenario, the doorway is your hair follicle or a cellular microenvironment. That bouncer isn't actively throwing punches, right? There's no active reaction happening. He's just physically occupying the door. Because he's standing there, the bad stuff, environmental stressors, simply can't get in. The structural integrity of the club is safe. That's exactly what this molecule does, completely avoiding pharmacological pathways. When you put it into practice, it's a super clean, logical three-step process. First, the molecule enters the follicular microenvironment. Second, it occupies that space through what they call steric hindrance, which is basically a fancy way of saying it gets in the way so things don't collapse. And third, it supports resilience without ever binding biochemically to your body's receptors. Try picturing this geometric presence like a perfectly sized puzzle piece, dropping right into a microscopic gap. It fits so precisely and fills the space so flawlessly that it fortifies the whole cellular architecture around it just by existing. The physical shape literally does all the work that an acid or enzyme normally would.
Let's move to Section 4, the tetracyclic scaffold, or building the molecule. According to the draft over on Zenodo, the SH-1 model relies on what they call a tetracyclic scaffold that's equipped with specific hydration anchors. Let's break that down real quick. Tetra means four, and cyclic means rings. So the framework is describing a four-ringed structure that's locked together. This acts as an incredibly rigid, sturdy physical foundation for the molecule. Think of it like the steel I-beams of a skyscraper. If you don't have that strong geometric base, our nightclub bouncer from earlier just wouldn't be big or sturdy enough to actually block the door. This unyielding four-ring shape is the absolute core of the molecule's physical presence. And attached to that deeply complex, highly theoretical four-ring steel framework are the hydration anchors. And honestly, it's a really pleasant surprise to see what these anchors actually are: botanical derivatives, caffeine, and coconut derivatives. It's such a brilliant contrast. You've got this high-level, almost science fiction geometric physics concept, and it's being anchored by familiar, earthy ingredients we already know and love in our daily skincare. You need these recognizable, water-loving elements to stabilize this sort of spaceship-like geometric structure inside the biological, wet environment of human skin. It perfectly grounds a super abstract theory right into everyday reality.
And finally, Section 5, From Concept to Reality. Let's trace the evolution of SH-1. This timeline is so great because it tracks the completely unlikely journey of this framework. Believe it or not, it actually began as a series of quirky, serialized posts in an editorial called Bibby magazine. I mean, it's pretty amusing that a profound scientific paradigm shift started in such an unusual, narrative-heavy place. But then, on April 19th, 2026, those wild ideas were rigorously consolidated into a highly structured conceptual patent on Zenodo. The journey from a quirky magazine curiosity to an open-access scientific repository is complete. And now it sits in its current, really exciting phase, pending empirical validation.
Which brings us to a rather surprising number, 0. Yep, right now the document has 0 citations and cites 0 datasets. Now, why is that actually thrilling? Because the author explicitly points this out not as a flaw, but as proof of exactly where we're standing. We are on the absolute frontier of a brand new theory. It proves we're looking at a purely theoretical, ground floor framework. The architectural blueprint has literally just been drawn up, but the cement hasn't even been poured yet to test the building. You can really feel the exclusivity of this moment when you look at the Zenodo engagement metrics. With just 12 total views and 9 total downloads, you, listening right now, are quite literally among the very first dozen or so people in the entire world to unpack and understand this framework. How cool is that? It's an incredibly fresh, newly minted archival record. We're getting a sneak peek at a scientific concept before the wider cosmetic and medical research communities have even had a chance to step in and test these geometric theories out. So, I want to leave you with this provocative thought as we wrap up today's explainer. Is geometry the absolute future of cosmetic resilience? Could the entire future of skincare and maybe even broader areas of medicine shift entirely away from complex, side effect-heavy chemical reactions? What if we instead focus entirely on perfect, physical puzzle pieces occupying microscopic space? It's a massive paradigm-shifting idea, and I really challenge you to imagine what else might change in a non-pharmacological future. Thanks for joining me today, and stay curious.